hours of pain.
So, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining Presenting Our Presence, a vodcast that's released every full moon. And the purpose of the vodcast is to make visible the incredible Indigenous folks that work at the University of Alberta. I'm honored to be one of the co hosts of Presenting Our Presence. My name is Florence Glanfield. I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation within Alberta, and I serve the university as Vice Provost, Indigenous Programming and Research. I'm going to invite my colleague, Michelle, who is the other co host, to introduce themselves, and then we'll turn it over to our another amazing colleague to introduce themselves. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Florence. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode. We're really excited today. My name is Michelle Durocher. I'm from the Fishing Lake Métis Settlement, and at the university, I'm the Executive Operations Coordinator in the President's Office. I'm going to turn it over to our guest, and we'll get things going. We're really excited to hear from her today. Brianna?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for this. Hi, my name's Brianna Winiandy-Munch. I'm from Soto First Nations in Moberly Lake, BC, Treaty 8 territory. I grew up in Dawson Creek, so still in BC. Came to the U of A in 2022, and I graduated just last spring, so I've been reflecting on that a lot. But I'm currently the Indigenous student recruiter at the University of Alberta, working within Indigenous enrollment management. So just supporting Indigenous students, kind of getting into post-secondary, sharing my stories, all that good stuff.
Thank you, Brianna. So that just leads me into my first question. I would love to hear more about how you ended up in this role and what was your journey to the university.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. I would say I came to the university wanting to pursue, originally it was environmental science. That's what it said on my application. And I went to the Augustana campus, so our smaller campus in Camrose. Within like my first year, first semester, I realized environmental science wasn't for me. So I switched into physical education and completed that. And yeah, I just wasn't sure where I wanted to go with that degree. I was thinking of pursuing a master's in like kinesiology, working to be like a physical therapist, working in like rehab med, all of that. I applied, but they had it. I wasn't going to get accepted that year, and I was like, okay, what's next? And this like opportunity came around again, with recruitment, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm really, set for this. Like, I don't know, like no one goes to university to be a recruiter, but I'm like, is this part of my next step? I have so many amazing like connections, and everyone was telling me to do it. So yeah, I find myself here, and it's, it'll be a year in like September, August. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here, still here.
That's awesome. I also went to Augustana, so just
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
amazing.
So you said it's almost been a year. What has this first year been like for you? Because this is, like you said, not where you thought the direction you were going to go. So this is just a bit more about your role and what you do and how it's gone for this first year of it.
Oh, yeah, no. The recruitment season, I like jumped in like head first. So, within like my first like 2 weeks of getting this job, I was out on the road recruiting at a couple of like local Edmonton schools. So just going out into communities and like schools and just telling people my story, specific programs at the U of A, like just making it seem interesting because it's a lot of like jargon sometimes and just making it like more personal and like, seeing themselves here through me, doing that kind of work. Um, yeah, it was a busy like recruitment season for Indigenous recruitment. So we got to go to like some amazing places like all throughout Alberta, northern, southern, western, eastern, all of that. I went up to Yellowknife for the first time. in my life. It was crazy. Beautiful experience. Gone out to Saskatoon. I got to go home to Dawson Creek and recruit there, which was, a full circle moment, connecting with some of my old school counselors and seeing some of my old teachers, and they're like, I recognize you a little. And I'm like, oh, I was a student here. And just yeah, all of that and just learning everything while I was just on the road. Like I think that's like one of my biggest accomplishments was just adapting to like the quick turnaround of like, okay, now we're gonna go out and recruit. And then, switching gears now where it's a little slower. Still doing a lot of like community events, but it's still it was a lot, but yeah.
'Cause, Brianna, I just am so profoundly struck by the journey that you took, even in the degree completion and how you worked through that. Because I know so many humans who come to universities, they might start in a program and then realize that it may not be the program that is a good fit for them. So, could you tell us a little bit about, first of all, what were the experiences that you had that made you think about environmental science at first? And then, how is it that you decided to move to physical education? I'm very curious, and I think that your experiences would be so helpful for others. And as you recruit, you can share those stories. And you mentioned sharing your story. So I'd love to know about how you navigated even those spaces. So whatever you're comfortable with sharing, we would be honored to hear it.
Oh, of course. I tell it as sometimes and kids laugh and just get along with these stories, but um even like when I applied, I had kind of this plan of I had always kind of wanted to do like physiotherapy. So that was like my first choice program. And like, so I did that. I applied to North Campus for that. And Augustana as for environmental science was my backup. I have friends who are in conservation science, who work with partners close to Soto First Nations and like Halfway River Nation, doing like land conservation with them, working between like all these big like oil companies and like the nations. So that seemed like a really cool job. And I was just like, you know what? If I get in for environmental science, it was meant to be. And then I started taking classes and I was like, oh God, I don't like bugs. I don't like learning about dirt. And I think that like, of course, I still obviously care about those things and I'm still passionate about it, but it just yeah, I found something that, I knew I kind of had this as a backup, like the physiotherapy thing. And I ended up working as a student trainer for the Augustana men's basketball team. So it really like pushed me to like pursue like the physical education, kinesiology, all of that. Like it was such a cool experience, and I think that path was meant for me. But yeah, and then doing that had led to like so many different opportunities, different people to talk to, different conversations and rooms I was a part of. So, yeah.
So that is too cool. Um, what does a trainer for the basketball team do? Like what
Oh
kind of
yeah.
role? Because in my mind, there must be lots of different trainers. So what gift did you offer the basketball team?
I want to say it was a whole big role. Wore a lot of different hats. Sometimes it felt like I was the team manager. Sometimes I was just there to talk. I taped a lot of ankles, dealt with a lot of like injuries and injury prevention. Um, all things that I thought were really interesting. And I'm like, it seemed like such a cool experience that you might not get in other universities, right in your undergrad, of course. So to do that and like ha say I had that experience, I'm like, I've dealt with bloody noses, I've dealt with twisted ankles, all these really cool things. As gross as it seems sometimes, it was like, one of my favorite memories at Augustana.
So I'm just giggling because it was better than bugs and dirt.
Oh, yeah. Pee
Well,
and, blood.
yeah. I love it. I love it. And so, um, how, like then, so you were decided to change your major and you must have had the support of humans to figure out how that could work within a degree program, which is also a valuable experience.
Yeah, there's so many people like in my corner always. And even when I questioned, because I just do a lot of questioning, I'm an overthinker. But even like understanding like maybe physical education isn't for me, like what's next, obviously, like finishing the degree and wondering like, do I pursue a master's? Like what does that look like? I've been kind of jumping between like six different faculties and I'm like, I'm not sure yet. But yeah, there's always people who have kind of guided me through like, you can still do this. Like there is no like hard like stop where you can't like not do something because you have already done something else. And I think that's like I always tell students, I'm like, you can kind of do anything once you like get the your foot in the door. Um, you're open to so many different opportunities and it may seem like you're shutting the door on one, but it leads to like so many others and then that door might crack open a little bit again. And it's your choice if you want to jump through that one as well. So, yeah, so many people.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So I also think about how, you looked at rehab medicine right away, right?
Yeah.
And you somehow went back there. So I'm curious because I used to be a high school teacher, so I would often talk with students about going to university. But tell me what took you to rehab medicine to be interested in it? Like, what is the story you tell about that? About the Because it always comes from someplace. It just doesn't pop out of midair, in my belief, in my understanding.
Yeah, I would think like I was, a pretty athletic kid. I did figure skating and speed skating, did a ton of different sports. Um, and I had a bad knee. That feels like, the common thing with most people in like rehab med or like physical therapy jobs is like, oh, they were a great athlete and all of a sudden they were injured and they went to physio and they, were inspired by the work that these like amazing like physiotherapists, everyone like massage therapists, chiropractors, um, the work that they do and just helping people get back to themselves. And I think after my experience with that, I think I was like, that is amazing, like helping people. And I think that's just what drives me is I really enjoy helping people in any way, shape, or form. Um, and it seemed like in like obviously with athletics, I really enjoy sports. So yeah, it just made sense for that. But I can kind of see how it's all everything that I do in my life, I'm like constantly helping people some way.
That's beautiful, Brian. That was actually the thread that I was just pulling on as you were speaking. I'm like, okay, so inspired to help in one way, and now you're helping in another. Um, I think that's really cool. What are some of the like day-to-day things that you go through that as like helping students or incoming students, I guess, because it's you're more on the front line rather than dealing with students once they're already here.
Yeah. Um, I God, I'm just constantly on the road. I'm kind of like the first face that most students would see at a table or a booth, or sometimes we do little presentations. So just really making sure that these students like they see themselves in me. So I'm like, I'd say I'm pretty cool. Um, in terms of like getting along with students, like I love to make them laugh. I think that's like half the battle sometimes is just getting these students engaged because sometimes you're sitting there for like an hour long presentation, like you're clocked out. Like you're not paying attention to what's being said. So if I can throw some like fun little jokes in there or just little bits of like my own like personal story that make it interesting, like I think, yeah, that just helps them kind of retain some of the information. Because if they don't remember a thing about the presentation, they'll remember you being funny and they're like, oh, remember that girl from the U of A? God, she was hilarious. And then they kind of get interested in the U of A that way. That's my mindset. And, I think it's working. I'd hope so.
So, what kind of questions do some of the students ask you, Brianna, when you are in those talking about possibly coming to the University of Alberta? What have you noticed are some of the threads that the Indigenous youth you speak with are asking about our institution?
Yeah. I think like a lot of students are worried about leaving like community. And so just wondering like what kind of like community aspects we have here at the U of A. And I think that is just such an important part of our identities is like making sure we're always surrounded by community, whether that be like ones that are like really close to home or even like if students are coming from like I came from BC. So just making sure I still had like my community and I've built myself a community out here. So a lot of questions about that. We have amazing services that going to Augustana, I didn't know much about First People's House. We had our own like Indigenous Student Services office, and like that itself, we were small, but we were a mighty community out there. But just knowing like First People's House and all of the amazing work that they do, and all of the other like faculty specific like Indigenous communities, like clubs and everything is stuff I'm still learning about. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world to be a part of this and explaining this to kids and seeing them like their eyes light up because, you know, they know they're not alone. And I think that's like the most important part is university is tough and sometimes you do feel alone. So even just like someone like me, super cool. I'm gonna keep highlighting that. Um, just like seeing themselves in that and being like, I'm the first little bit of community that they'll see out here and, still see them on campus. I think that is something I'm really looking forward to is recognizing faces that I've seen on the road or in presentations. Like, I think that's going to be really exciting going forward.
I had a similar experience when I came to do a master's degree. Many of the uh, students that I had taught in grade 12 were beginning their first year university when I came to do a master's degree. And so I would run into them on campus, and we eventually would meet for coffee every couple of months or something just to keep in touch. It was really neat to see how they were navigating the spaces. So it will be exciting for you, Brianna, for them to see the super cool person they met in their home community, and now you are here. So, can I ask you one other thing about the transition for you from Augustana to North Campus? Just
Oh God.
about finding your way around and make it like it's just so different. So, how's the transition been for you in coming from a faculty and then coming into the work in North Campus? And it looks like you work in University Commons based on your background.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
so
cute little office cubicle.
yeah.
Um, I'd say like, cause Um, I think that was one of the best parts of like Augustana was the fact it was a small campus. I'd say Dawson Creek is about the same size, if not a little bit larger, a little bit smaller. So that's why I stuck with Augustana. Like I did have the opportunity. I could have transferred to North Campus, but all of this around me felt super overwhelming sometimes. Like even just coming here for like little presentations or anything like that. And then I think once I finally graduated, um, kind of navigating like coming here for like the interview and coming here for like checking out the bookstore, just all these little things, I finally was just like, this is like a really interesting place. And of course, I haven't explored all of the buildings yet. I've gone on a couple campus tours. Um, but I know where my little office is. I know how to get to the Tim Hortons, and that's about it. I know where to park because the first time I came here, I drove through the bus loop and it was like grad season. So all these like families and everyone were like, I'm just like getting myself lost. And I felt a little silly, but I don't do that no more.
um, yeah, so you finished your degree at Augustana?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you just switched programs while you were there.
Yeah. Nothing like
Okay.
too crazy.
Okay, cool. Okay, so then what else would you like to explore about North Campus? Like what are we talked about First People's House. Is there anything else on campus that you're looking forward to checking out more? Because it sounds like you spend more time off campus in trips and doing stuff than you do like sitting in that office of yours.
I know. I'm like, this is the first little bit that I've really got to like decorate the space or just, exist in this space. And yeah, North Campus is like so beautiful. Especially like when I had first started and they had like the week of welcome, to WOW and everything, like getting to experience that. And just like I could see myself here as a student now. Maybe not when I had first started university, like 4 something years ago. But it's just like such a wonderful place to like really explore and like obviously First People's House is moving into their brand new building. That is something that we're like super hyped about. I talk about it all the time in recruitment. I'm like, imagine this tiny office space for, so many Indigenous students, and now you have this brand new building. Like, please be hyped for this. Like, no one gets it, but the people that do, do. And just being able to have that space for Indigenous students in such a large space and like full of just opportunity for them, like, that's something I think I will explore, even though I'm not a student. I'm just like, I want to hang out there. But no, I think that is like one of my big highlights and just like exploring places that you would explore as a student. So I see all these like super cool study spots in like, I think it's like Cab. I don't know the names of these places yet, but just like super fun, like little cafes and stuff. Cause, Augustana had one on campus. Um, but knowing that there's like two Tim Hortons, like a whole bunch of Starbucks, like all of those are here for students. And I'm like, let me take advantage of that and like live my, not student life.
Oh, shoot. But yeah, I think that's so funny because that was my journey as well. I did my whole degree at Augustana and then started working at North Campus. So that's so funny because that's that's exactly what I did. And I also had a really hard time trying to figure out where things were and directionally where I was going, getting all turned around and stuff. So that's funny. I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's what I did too. I was lost, but I think it's really cool. I think it even will help your recruitment to be able to like really tell people like about campus more, right? I mean, you can probably speak to the programs and the people, but it'll be really cool to just talk about this land, right? This space that they're going to be coming to, and the history of it, because this was, a First Nations land at one point, right? So, whoop,
No, and I think that's
go
something
ahead.
with Star's work as well, like my coworker, Morning Star. You guys had her on the podcast a little while ago, but she really like we have like Indigenous campus tours. They're not through like the ambassador program or campus visits that way. So I think her work with that and really like showing these students not necessarily like, here's where you'd be studying in a classroom, here's this. She's showing them the cool spots and joining her on some of these tours and like getting to experience it firsthand with these students as well, I think has just like kind of has definitely helped me with like recruitment and like really getting to experience these places like personally and having my own little stories to share with them as well. Um, just like, yeah, it really helps the job and just really like paints the university in a light that like, especially for Indigenous students, that they will see themselves here for sure.
Yeah, I just love how we now have the Treaty 6 Confederacy and the Métis Nation flags, outside of University Commons. I love how we walk into University Commons and, you know, um, I feel present. I feel that the experiences of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis students are can be seen in the in the halls of the commons even. So it is really incredibly powerful. I mean, when I came to first started coming to the University of Alberta, of course, we didn't even talk about our identity at that point in time. And I now walk, try to walk by those flags every time I'm on campus because it just reminds me of the visibility and all of the changes that have happened over the years. And First People's House is a beautiful example of that as well. And I'm looking forward. I actually haven't seen the inside yet. I'm looking forward to a tour of that. And so that's like the visibility has been so important. I think in Brianna, those tours that your unit does is so incredible. We are actually going to develop, like, there's an alumni kind of week in September, and we're going to develop a self-guided tour of some of the Indigenous spaces around University Commons. So people will be able to go and just learn about it, right? And
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah, so it's kind of exciting. You
No,
know what?
100% exciting.
It is 100. Like, could we have ever done this 5 years ago? No. Even 4 years ago? No. But we can now. Brianna, what would you say was your biggest learning curve in this work that you're doing? Because you are a recruiter for all of the University of Alberta. So, in that, with almost a year under your belt, what would you say was the your biggest learning so far?
Definitely like I jumped into it so quickly. There's a lot of like people within like national recruitment who have been doing this for years at this point, or just like had so much more experience. Especially like I'm not a good presenter. I will say that. I do say a lot of and all that, like kind of just jumble my words a lot. And I think that was one of the hardest things to try and learn was that I didn't have to be perfect in that role. And I think that's what makes me human and just like understanding like regardless of, how I sound or, the things that I say in a certain way, compared to like other styles of like recruitment. It just like is part of the Indigenous experience. I will say it has gotten easier presenting, um, and just being more natural with it. Like I felt so like stiff and unsure, if I even belonged in this role. That was one of my like hardest hurdles to kind of get over was just like, am I in this space? Like, why am I in these like really big important rooms with all these really big important people? And it just felt like I was in such a small role for that. But to be within like Indigenous enrollment management, working in the office of the registrar, like all of this is like, it just like situates me that I'm like, I am meant to be here. I'm meant to be in these spots, in these roles. And I just have to kind of get over like, oh, they're gonna think I'm silly for like the way I speak in these positions, or it's just like that's my experience. That's how who I am, and that's why I'm in this role. That's why I'm in these rooms. Is just yeah, I can't be afraid of, how I speak or, how nervous I am to be in some of these rooms. Like, I'm meant to be here, I guess.
So, two other wonders I had based on that, then I guess, is how do you learn about all of the diversity of the programs? Like, because there's so many opportunities. And that's my first wonder. And then my second wonder is, do you get questions from potential students about the processes we use around document verification? I'm
Oh,
curious
yeah.
about that too, because one of the first comments I'll get if I'm meeting with a community leadership is they'll ask me about our processes, you know, for documentation verification. And sometimes they ask me about programs. So I'm curious if you get those, how do you learn and navigate those spaces yourself? As because you become a representative and a voice of the University of Alberta, right? Which is pretty cool for a pretty cool person.
So cool. Um, no, it was so crazy trying to like learn about all these things because coming from like the smaller faculty like Augustana, I'm like I had 16 programs to remember. And then they added like the master's programs out there. And I'm just like, oh, that's not too many. And then it's like, oh, we have over 200 plus at, North Campus and Campus St. John. And, you know, I'm just like, that's so many. What am I supposed to do? Fortunately, big old sheet of paper has all of my presentation information. So, like, I think my first week was really just like nailing that down. Um, and I think that's why it felt so stiff at first because it wasn't necessarily me talking. And then once I got more experience, like on the road and connecting with other recruiters or having meetings with certain people in like faculties where they can kind of explain the programs better. Um, I think that really like made the difference and made it more personal, and I can talk about these like programs and faculties um, just like more personally. And because I had experience, not necessarily in the programs, but just like talking with these people and seeing their passion for it. And I can kind of translate that through like recruitment and talking about these the same way that they would if they were in recruitment. But yeah. And then with the identity verification, all of that, I'm very grateful that we have an amazing team of there's like four of us. Um, so I do get those questions and I usually do pass them off just because it is a very like daunting process. We've had like cases where students don't necessarily have their status cards, but here they have this huge like lineage and you can like trace it back far enough where, they can be seen as like a verified Indigenous student. Just they don't have the card and just like they are really complicated conversations to have, especially with like, admissions or like identity management. And I just like really try and make this like process super simple for students to understand. But it is more complicated than that because, there are cases where um s- certain people can't obtain status or their like Métis citizenship because there's just been so much like colonialism and just like taking away of some of these like, certificates that you need, like certain birth certificates, death certificates, all of this. It's like there has to be a simpler way. And I think we're working on that. And it's something that I'm in these conversations about. And I'm like, what am I doing here? But I do offer like a bit of that, but then also being able to relay some of that information that is happening in those meetings to students, prospective students who are wondering about that. So scary, but also I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, and thank you for that because it's like you can be a student, you can self-declare, right? And it's always just when it comes to if you want some financial. If the sponsors or the donors of funding require that you be, you know, this is where it becomes complex as well because well, there's just history. We know why, but it also is very awkward because, as you said, it is a remnant of colonialism. And so, how we hold on to that space is really, and how we hold on to the piece that you can be indigenous, you can self-identify. We don't ask for your,
Yeah.
the, but if you want this funding because of the what the donors or the funders are saying, then this is the processes we need to go through. So it's a really awkward space for Indigenous humans. Yeah,
Yeah. And like
yeah.
just I would hope that like one day in a bright, beautiful world, we can like eliminate a lot of those barriers. Um, like that is still something we're working towards, like even just having like free application days all year round because, we only have them, a couple days in the fall. Well, what about the students who don't necessarily know what they're going to do right away and don't apply right away? Because that's like the first week that applications are open. Some students aren't even thinking about that. They're like just starting like, their grade 12 year. And just like with that, opening the door like for free applications to be all year round, I think that would be really helpful for students who might not necessarily know right away, but then also people in like master's programs, all of that, like just really helping them out and eliminating those barriers. And then, with self-identification versus like the verified documents that, some things require, like we're starting small, but I feel like there is so much room to make change. And I would hope that I can continue to be a part of those conversations, even if it's just like in a tiny, tiny way. But yeah.
But when you held up the sheet with the programs and everything, it just made me think, what are you seeing as some of like the most um asked about programs or asked about faculties, or are there things that seem to be more popular that students are asking you about?
Um, I'd definitely say engineering, which is crazy because in like grade 11, grade 12, I wasn't thinking I'm gonna be a chemical engineer or, all these different things or Um, yeah, engineering's like so popular. Nursing, I know a bunch of like people I graduated with went to like nursing school. And I think those ones are really great programs. Especially nursing. There's like so many opportunities for students to like go back and work in community education because of ATEP. Just having a whole bunch of like conversations about, those types of programs, working in communities because I think that is something like students want to go back to after they finish their degrees. I have yet to go back. I'm still here as a part of the university, but I think the ultimate goal is to some way kind of help out my community back home. Right now, it's just literally just getting more students to come to the U of A. But yeah, I think that's where was I going? Engineering and ATEP, education, nursing. Those are like my top three, I would say.
That's really cool. Like you just said, as you were mentioning them, I was like, oh yeah, those are things that people can take back to their communities and help their community thrive. One of my really good friends just graduated from ATEP last year, and she is now a teacher in our home community. And another one of my cousins is a nurse, and now she works in nursing in Cold Lake First Nation. So like
That's
these are,
beautiful.
yeah, right. So these are like exactly what we're hoping is going to be some of the results of having Indigenous people in these really incredible programs, is that they thrive and that they maybe want to take that back to their communities and help their communities. I think that's really cool to see.
And I think that's something I always like recommend. Like it's obviously up to the students. I'm only there to like introduce them to this, but really just hoping that, we can connect them back to community. And even if they're not necessarily like connected with their community, like building themselves like a community here, and then like you see them get involved in like volunteer with certain clubs or student associations, like all of that, because that's where they built their community first, and then they have just like this amazing like toolbox of like supports. And I think that's kind of also where I went with it. It was just like I created this community here, and I'm still here, and just have so many people I can chat with about like different opportunities or different pathways going forward. Um, I think that's something I always highlight to students is even if you necessarily don't want to go back to community, you'll always have one here, and there's always something for you here. Like I haven't left yet, so I'm still here.
Wow, so beautiful, Brianna. And we're it's just been an honor to come to know you a little bit and where you're from, how you and how you've navigated your experience as a student, first of all, and now as an employee of the University of Alberta. And I just want to say I'm so honored that you are a representative and that you talk to all of those amazing potential students of the University of Alberta. So thank you for the time with us. Much appreciated, Brianna. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Thanks, Florence. Yeah, it's just been so wonderful to get to know you a bit more, Brianna. And to me, it's funny that we have some parallels there in our journeys. I wish you all the best and good luck with the upcoming school year. I feel like maybe now you're facing it a little bit more, ready to take it on, and doesn't feel so much like being thrown in the deep end. But we're very grateful that you're here, that you're doing this work, and thanks for being here today.
No, thank you guys for allowing me to do this. This is just part of some of the amazing work that I will continue to do. Just continue being like representation, presenting our presence. Crazy how that's the name of this. But like, yeah, just continuing to like make sure that we have representation on campus, and like this is like continuous work. And I think like Indigenous students aren't like looking for they're not looking for perfection within the institution. They're just looking for like community and people who genuinely care. And I could tell like this community that you guys have built on this podcast, but also just like everyone we talk to within like recruitment and the Indigenous recruitment circle, all these different people in all these different faculties. Like we genuinely care for these students. And no, it's so grateful to be a part of conversations where we do support the students and we do care and continue to represent our people.